In Part 1, Layla melted the icy heart of billionaire Alpha Damien Vargr, but to save her from a deadly wolf pack war, he did the unthinkable. He erased her memory and sent her away. Now, in Part 2, Layla is living a quiet life in Seabrook, annoyed by her rude, hoodie-wearing neighbor, Mr. Black. She thinks he hates her, until she discovers a secret room in his apartment covered in photos of her. The Alpha didn't leave. He's been watching from the shadows, and now the enemy has found them both. Welcome back to the pack, and a massive welcome to all our new listeners tuning in to Lina's Romantasy collection. I am so excited to share this explosive finale with you. If you love possessive alphas, secret identities, and happily ever afters, please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Also, don't be shy. Share this video with a friend who needs a little romance today. I love seeing how far our pack reaches around the globe, so let's do a roll call. Tell me in the comments section, where are you listening from right now? Now, get comfortable. It's time to find out what happens when the Alpha gets caught. Chapter 1. The Rich and the Restless. I slammed the ball of dough onto the stainless steel counter. Wham! It felt good. It felt satisfying. Die, I muttered, punching the sourdough starter. Just die and become bread already. My little brother, Toby, looked up from his comic book. He was sitting on a high stool near the register, swinging his legs. He looked healthy. His cheeks were round and pink, not sunken and gray like they had been 6 months ago. "You're angry at the flour again," Toby observed calmly. "Dr. Phil says displaced anger is a sign of inner turmoil." I glared at him, blowing a stray curl of hair out of my face. "Dr. Phil is not a licensed therapist, Toby, and I am not angry. I am spirited." "You're grumpy," Toby corrected, turning a page. "You're rich, you own a bakery, and we live at the beach. You should be happy, but you act like you have a rock in your shoe." He was right. That was the annoying part. 6 months ago, I had woken up on a train with $5 million in my bank account, a healthy brother, and a hole in my memory the size of the Grand Canyon. I didn't remember how I got the money. I didn't remember the job I supposedly had. I just had a vague sense of loss, like I had left the stove on in a house that burned down. So, I did what any rational person would do. I moved to a sunny coastal town called Seabrook, opened a bakery called The Golden Crust, and proceeded to be incredibly irritated by how perfect my life was. I had no debts, I had no worries, I was bored out of my mind. I wiped my flour-dusted hands on my apron. I'm not grumpy, I just hate the rain. It's been raining for 3 days. "It's cozy," Toby argued. "It's wet," I snapped. I walked over to the front window and flipped the sign from closed to open. Outside, the gray drizzle blurred the view of the ocean. The town was sleepy. Too sleepy. I missed the noise of the city, even though I couldn't remember why. I checked the clock on the wall. 6:59 a.m. My stomach did a traitorous little flip. My hands, which were steady when I was piping icing onto cupcakes, started to tremble slightly. "He's coming," Toby whispered dramatically. "The dark night." "Stop calling him that," I hissed, straightening my apron. "He's just a neighbor. A rude, giant, brooding neighbor." "He's totally a superhero," Toby insisted. "Or a supervillain. I haven't decided yet." The clock clicked to 7 a.m. On the dot. He was never late. It was almost robotic. The heavy wooden door pushed open. The little bell above it chimed, sounding far too cheerful for the man who stepped inside. A blast of cold, wet air swept into the warm, vanilla-scented bakery. And then, he was there. Mr. Black. That's what the mailbox in apartment 4B said, just black. He took up the entire doorway. He was massive. He had to duck slightly to get under the frame. He wore a black hoodie soaked with rain, pulled low over his face. He wore dark sunglasses, even though it was practically twilight outside. He looked like a tank wrapped in cotton. He stood on the welcome mat, dripping water onto my clean floor. I felt that familiar zap of electricity. It started in my toes and shot up my spine. It made me want to do two things simultaneously: run into his arms or smack him with a baguette. I chose sarcasm. "Ah, Mr. Sunshine returns," I said loudly, leaning against the counter. "Let me guess, you're here to spread joy and cheer?" He didn't answer. He walked toward the counter, his heavy boots thudding against the floorboards. He stopped 3 feet away. He always stayed 3 feet away. "Bagel," he grunted. His voice was deep. It wasn't just a voice, it was a rumble that vibrated in my chest cavity. "Good morning to you too." I rolled my eyes. "How are we doing today, Mr. Black? Lovely weather for a brooding session in the rain, isn't it?" He went stiff, his jaw clenched. I could see the muscles feathering under the stubble on his cheek. He didn't look at me. He looked at the cash register. "1 bagel," he repeated, his tone leaving zero room for argument. "Plain." I huffed out a breath. "You know, we have other flavors. Sesame, poppy seed. I made a jalapeno cheddar one that will literally change your life." "Plain," he growled. "You are the most boring man I have ever met," I declared, grabbing the tongs. I wasn't scared of him. Most people in town crossed the street when they saw him. He looked dangerous. He looked like he broke bones for a living. But for some reason, my instinct wasn't fear. It was annoyance. I wanted to poke the bear. I wanted to make him react. I shoved a plain bagel into a bag. I threw it on the counter. $5, I said coolly, but I charge extra for the dazzling conversation. Chapter 2. The Vanilla War. He ignored my jab. He always ignored my jabs. It was infuriating. Mr. Black reached into the pocket of his damp hoodie. His hand emerged, large, tanned, and covered in faint white scars. I found myself staring at his hands. They were powerful hands. I had a sudden, intrusive thought about what those hands would feel like if they weren't holding a crumpled $5 bill. "Stop it, Layla," I scolded myself. "He's a jerk. A hot jerk, but a jerk." He placed the money on the counter. He didn't slide it. He placed it with deliberate care, avoiding touching my fingers. "Keep the change," he muttered. He turned to leave. "Wait," I said. It came out sharper than I intended. He stopped, his back to me. His shoulders were incredibly broad. The wet fabric of his hoodie clung to him, revealing a landscape of muscle that made my mouth go dry. "I made cinnamon rolls," I said. My voice softened just a fraction. "They just came out of the oven. The icing is still warm." I didn't know why I did this. Every day I tried to feed him something sweet. Every day I tried to crack that hard shell. It was my own stubbornness. I cooked with love. I baked feelings into food. It offended me that he refused to taste it. "On the house," I added. "You look like you need it. You look tired." Mr. Black went rigid. His hands curled into fists at his sides. He turned his head slightly. He didn't look at me, but he angled his face toward the display case. He inhaled. I saw his nostrils flare. It was a sharp, deep intake of breath. For a second, the air in the bakery changed. It became heavy, charged. Static electricity crackled along my skin. "No sugar," he rasped. His voice sounded strained, like he was in physical pain. "Why?" I challenged, crossing my arms over my chest. "Are you allergic to happiness? Is it a religious thing? Or do you just enjoy depriving yourself?" He flinched. Actually flinched. "I don't deserve it," he whispered. The words were so quiet I almost missed them. I blinked, taken aback. That was heavy. "It's a pastry, buddy," I said, dropping the sass for a moment. "It's not a moral judgment, just eat the damn roll." He turned fully then. Even with the sunglasses, I could feel the intensity of his gaze. He was staring right at me. He was staring at my neck specifically. My hand instinctively went to my collarbone, brushing the bare skin there. I always felt naked without something. I didn't know what. "I cannot," he said. The growl was back in his voice, darker this time. "If I start, I won't stop." My breath hitched. Was he talking about the cinnamon roll? Or something else? The way he said it made my knees weak. It was a hunger. a raw, starving hunger that rolled off him in waves. "He's talking about the food, right?" Toby asked loudly from his stool, because that sounded weird. Mr. Black jerked as if he had been slapped. He seemed to realize where he was. He pulled his hood down lower. "Good day," he said abruptly. He grabbed his plain bagel and marched toward the door. He moved fast, like the bakery was on fire. "You're running away!" I called after him, feeling a surge of irrational anger.
"You always run away!"
He paused at the door. His hand gripped the handle so hard I heard the metal groan. For a second, I thought he was going to rip the door off its hinges. "I am protecting you," he said, his voice a low rumble that didn't reach Toby's ears, but hit mine like a physical blow. "From what?" I demanded. "Calculated carbs?" He didn't answer. He pushed the door open and vanished into the gray rain. I stood there, fuming. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. "He's weird," Toby concluded, taking a bite of his croissant. "But he smells good, like trees and lightning." "He smells like wet dog and bad attitude," I lied, grabbing a rag to wipe down the counter aggressively. But Toby was right. He smelled like pine. He smelled like rain. And underneath that, he smelled like something that made my blood sing. "Where's Swipper?" I asked, needing a distraction. Toby pointed to the back door, which was slightly ajar. "He went on a mission. He said he smelled treasure." My blood ran cold. "Toby, you let the ferret out?" "He's an apex predator, Layla. He needs to hunt." "He's a thief!" I threw the rag down. "And if he steals Mrs. Higgins' dentures again, we are getting evicted." Chapter 3. The Shrine. I ran out the back door into the alleyway. The rain had turned into a mist. The metal fire escape zigzagged up the side of the red brick building. "Swipper!" I hissed, looking around the dumpsters. "Here, kitty kitty, ratty ratty." No sign of the white and brown bandit. Then I heard a noise. Clang, clang. I looked up. High up on the metal stairs, halfway to the 4th floor, I saw a fuzzy butt wiggling. "Oh no," I groaned. Swipper was climbing toward the neighbor's apartment, apartment 4B, Mr. Black's apartment. "Swipper, get down here," I whisper-shouted, grabbing the railing. "Do not go in there. That man will turn you into a scarf." Swipper ignored me. He reached the landing. The window next to the door was cracked open just an inch. He flattened his body like a liquid pancake and squeezed through. "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered. I had no choice. I started climbing. The metal stairs were slippery with rain. My sneakers squeaked. I reached the 4th floor landing, out of breath. My heart was hammering. This was trespassing. This was illegal. This was also the only way to save my pet from the neighborhood's psycho. I crept toward the window. I expected to see a dark, scary bachelor pad, maybe some weights, maybe a collection of eclectic knives. I peeked through the glass. I froze. The apartment was empty, completely empty. No couch, no TV, no table, no bed frame. The only thing in the room was a sleeping bag rolled out on the hardwood floor in the corner. And the wall. The entire far wall was covered in photos. I squinted, pressing my face against the cold, wet glass. I wiped the condensation away with my sleeve. They were photos of me. There was a photo of me walking Toby to the school bus, laughing. A photo of me buying flour at the market, looking annoyed. A photo of me sitting on the pier, staring at the ocean. A photo of me sleeping on the train, taken from across the aisle. Hundreds of them. A collage of my life in Seabrook. My stomach dropped to my feet. He wasn't just a grumpy neighbor. He was a stalker. "Oh my God," I breathed, backing away. "He's a serial killer." But my eyes caught something else. In the center of the photo wall, pinned up like a holy relic, was a necklace. It was broken. A silver chain snapped in half. A pendant hung from it, a dark blue sapphire shaped like a crescent moon. My hand flew to my throat. The phantom weight returned. I knew that necklace. I had seen it in my dreams. I had felt it against my skin. Why did Mr. Black have it? Get out. The voice came from behind me. It was low, dangerous, and terrifyingly close. I spun around on the narrow metal platform. Mr. Black was standing there. He had come up the stairs silently. He was blocking the only exit. He wasn't wearing his sunglasses. For the first time in 6 months, I looked him in the eye. They weren't brown. They weren't blue. They were amber. Bright, burning, liquid gold. Zap! A bolt of lightning hit my brain. The world tilted. Suddenly, I wasn't on a fire escape. I was in a boardroom. I smelled beef stew. I saw a man in a suit blocking the door. I heard a growl. You are promoted. I saw a red dress. I felt a hand on my neck. Mine. I gasped, stumbling back. My head split open with a migraine so intense it blinded me. You, I choked out, clutching the railing to keep from falling. I know you. Mr. Black, Damien, stepped forward. The anger on his face vanished, replaced by pure panic. Layla, don't, he pleaded. His voice cracked. Don't look. Go back downstairs. Who are you? I demanded, my voice shaking. Why do you have pictures of me? Why do you have my necklace? I don't, he lied, but he looked guilty. He looked heartbroken. You're him, I whispered, the fog in my brain swirling, trying to clear. The man in the suit. The man who liked my stew. He flinched. He reached out a hand to steady me, but stopped inches from my arm, as if touching me would burn him. Forget this, he ordered. He tried to use that commanding alpha tone, but it was weak. Go back to your life, Layla. Be happy. I'm not happy, I yelled, surprising both of us. I'm miserable, and I think it's your fault. I reached out and grabbed his wrist. I didn't think. I just needed to anchor myself. My skin touched his. The reaction was explosive. It wasn't just a spark, it was a nuclear detonation. Heat rushed up my arm. The smell of pine and rain overwhelmed me. The memory block in my mind didn't just crack, it shattered. I saw the truck. I saw him stopping it with his bare hands. I looked up at him, my eyes wide with horror and recognition. You're not a man, I whispered. Damien closed his eyes. He looked defeated. No, he rasped. I'm not. Chapter 4. The Headache and the Heartache. The pain in my head wasn't a throb, it was a sledgehammer. Images flashed behind my eyelids like a movie reel on fast forward. I saw a library with towering shelves. I saw a bowl of beef stew steaming in a cold boardroom. I saw a red dress pooling on the floor. I felt lips on my neck. You are mine. The voice in the memory was the same as the voice in front of me. I gasped, clutching the railing of the fire escape. The rain was still falling, slicking my hair to my face, but I didn't feel the cold anymore. I felt him. The heat radiating off Damien was like standing next to an open oven door. Layla, Damien warned, his voice rough with panic. Stop looking at me. Go downstairs. You're having an episode. It's the stress. Shut up, I snapped. It came out breathless, but the anger was there. Real, hot, bubbling anger. I blinked, forcing my vision to clear. The golden amber of his eyes burned into mine. Those weren't contacts. That wasn't a trick of the light. That was the wolf. You erased me, I whispered. The realization hit me harder than the headache. You drugged me. You put me on a train. You gave me $5 million and you deleted yourself from my brain like a bad file. Damien flinched. He took a step back, retreating into the shadows of his empty apartment. I saved you. Julian was coming. The council wanted you dead. It was the only way. It was the coward's way, I yelled. I didn't run away from the scary, glowing eyes. I climbed through the window. I stumbled into his apartment, if you could call it that. It was freezing. The only light came from the street lamp outside. I marched right up to him, poking a finger into his rock-hard chest. You decided for me, I accused, my voice rising. You decided I was too weak to handle the truth, so you packed me up like a doll and shipped me off to play bakery while you lived. Like this? I gestured wildly to the empty room, to the sleeping bag on the floor, to the wall covered in photos of me. "You've been watching me," I realized. My eyes scanned the wall. There was a photo of me buying strawberries, a photo of me fixing the bakery sign. "You've been stalking me for 6 months." "Guarding," he corrected, his jaw clenched tight. "I have been guarding you, every day, every night." "From the shadows?" I scoffed. "Buying a plain bagel and refusing to talk to me? That's your grand plan?" "It worked," he growled. "You are safe. You are happy. You hate me, and that keeps you alive." "I don't hate you, you idiot," I shouted. "I'm annoyed by you. There is a difference." I grabbed the front of his wet hoodie. I yanked him down, or tried to. He was like a mountain, so I could look him in the face. "I felt you," I whispered, the anger melting into grief. Every day for 6 months, I felt like I was missing a limb. I was miserable, Damien. I was rich and safe and absolutely miserable because my soul knew you were gone. Damien's control snapped. He grabbed my wrists. His grip was iron, but his touch was gentle. He pulled me close, burying his face in the crook of my neck. He inhaled deeply, a shudder running through his massive frame. "I missed you," he groaned against my skin. "God, Layla, I missed you. Watching you. Being so close but not being able to touch you. It has been hell." "Good," I said, my voice trembling as I wrapped my arms around his neck. "I hope it hurt, because you deserve it for lying to me." He pulled back, his golden eyes searching mine. "We have to leave. Now that you remember, the scent will change, the bond will flare, Julian will find us." "Let him come," I said fiercely. "I have a rolling pin downstairs and I am in a very bad mood." Damien actually smiled. It was small, grim, and incredibly sexy. Feisty. I missed that too. Before we could kiss, and we were definitely about to kiss, a sound cut through the air. "Wee-oo, wee-oo!" The bakery's security alarm. "Toby!" I gasped. Chapter 5. Uninvited Guests. Fear is a funny thing. Sometimes it paralyzes you, but when you're a big sister, fear is just gasoline. "Toby!" I screamed. I didn't take the fire escape. I ran for the apartment door. Damien was faster. He moved in a blur, unlocking the deadbolts on his door before I could even reach the handle. He pushed me behind him. "Stay close," he commanded. The playfulness was gone. The alpha was back. We sprinted down the hallway and took the indoor stairs 2 at a time. The alarm was deafening, screaming through the thin walls of the building. We burst into the back room of the bakery. The kitchen was a mess. A tray of muffins had been knocked over. Flour dusted the floor like snow. "Well, isn't this cozy?" A smooth, oily voice drawled from the front of the shop. I pushed past Damien, ignoring his growl of warning. I ran to the swinging doors and shoved them open. The display case was smashed. Glass covered the floor, glinting under the emergency lights. Standing in the center of the customer area was a man in a white suit. He looked older than I remembered from the gala, more haggard, his face lined with stress. But his smile was the same. It was the smile of a shark that had just found blood in the water. Julian Vane. And in his grip, dangling by the back of his superhero pajama shirt, was Toby. "Put him down!" I shrieked. I grabbed the first thing I saw, a heavy ceramic napkin holder from a table, and hurled it at his head. My aim was excellent. It whizzed past Julian's ear, smashing into the wall behind him. Julian didn't flinch. He just laughed. "Missed me, sweetheart. And here I thought the domestic life would have softened you." "Let the boy go, Julian." Damien's voice rumbled from behind me. Damien stepped into the light. He wasn't hiding anymore. He ripped off his sunglasses and tossed them aside. He pulled down his hood. He looked terrifying. His muscles were coiled, his shirt straining at the seams, and his eyes were blazing like 2 suns. "Ah, the neighbor," Julian sneered. "I knew it. I knew you couldn't stay away from her. You're predictable, Vargr. Pathetically predictable." He tightened his grip on Toby's shirt. Toby whimpered, his little legs kicking in the air. "You're hurting him!" I yelled, stepping forward. "He's a child, Julian. This is between you and Damien." "Oh no," Julian tutted. "This is between me and the council. And you three are my ticket back into their good graces. See, I told them you were dead, Damien. I told them I disposed of the problem. But if I bring them the Alpha, the Luna, and the pup, well, I imagine I'll get a promotion." "I have backup this time," Julian shouted toward the door. 4 men stepped out of the shadows of the street. They weren't wearing suits. They were wearing tactical gear. They held long, silver-tipped spears. "Wolf hunters," Damien murmured. "Run, Layla," Damien roared. "Take the back door." "I am not leaving my brother," I screamed back. "And I am not leaving you." I grabbed a broom from the corner. It was ridiculous. It was a piece of wood against trained killers, but I didn't care. Julian laughed. "She wants to fight. How adorable." "She is not adorable," Damien growled. His body began to shake. Bones cracked audibly. His skin rippled. "She is the queen." "Kill the wolf," Julian ordered his men. "Capture the girl." The hunters charged. Damien didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He looked at me one last time, a look of pure, desperate love, and then he let go. He shifted. Chapter 6. Fur and Fury. I had never seen it happen fully. In the past, I had only seen the eyes, the strength, the shadows. This was different. This was raw biology meeting magic. Damien fell forward onto his hands. His spine arched and snapped, elongating. Dark fur burst from his skin like a fast-forward video of a blooming flower. His jaw extended, cracking and reshaping into a muzzle filled with razor-sharp ivory daggers. In 2 seconds, the man was gone. In his place stood a monster. He was huge, a midnight black wolf the size of a pony, with shoulders made of pure muscle and eyes that glowed with ancient intelligence. He roared. It wasn't a howl. It was a sonic boom that shook the bakery's foundation and shattered the remaining windows. "Holy cow," Toby whispered, dangling from Julian's hand. "Shadowfang is real." The wolf launched himself. He moved like liquid shadow. He slammed into the first 2 hunters, sending them flying through the plate glass window and out into the rainy street. He didn't bite them. He just swatted them with a paw the size of a dinner plate, and they crumpled like paper dolls. "Shoot him!" Julian screamed, backing away. He was dragging Toby with him toward the door. The other 2 hunters jabbed their silver spears. One grazed the wolf's flank. Damien yelped, a high, sharp sound that tore at my heart. Smoke rose from the wound where the silver touched him. "No!" I yelled. My fear vanished. My irritability took over. I ran at the nearest hunter. He was distracted by the giant wolf. He didn't expect the angry baker. I swung the broom handle with everything I had. I aimed low. Crack! I hit him right in the kneecap. The hunter howled in pain and dropped to one knee. "Order up!" I shouted. Damien saw the opening. He lunged, snapping his jaws around the hunter's weapon and ripping it from his hands. He tossed the man across the room into the display of day-old bagels. Now it was just Julian. The wolf turned toward him. Damien snarled, saliva dripping from his teeth. He crouched, ready to spring. Julian panicked. He looked at the wolf, then at the angry woman with the broom. He realized he had lost control of the room. He dropped Toby. "This isn't over!" Julian yelled. He turned and bolted out the door, jumping into a waiting black SUV that screeched away into the night. "Toby!" I dropped the broom and fell to my knees, sliding across the floor to catch him. Toby was shaken, but he was grinning. "Did you see that? Did you see him? He threw that guy into the bagels." "I saw," I breathed, checking him for scratches. "You're okay. You're okay." A heavy, huffing sound came from behind me. I turned around. The massive black wolf was standing there. The bakery was destroyed. Glass, flour, and pastries were everywhere. The wolf looked at me. He lowered his massive head, his ears pinned back. He looked guilty. He let out a soft whine, inching closer, as if asking for permission. I wasn't scared. I looked at those amber eyes and saw the man who had refused a cinnamon roll because he thought he didn't deserve sweetness. I reached out. The wolf flinched, expecting me to hit him. Instead, I buried my hands in the thick fur around his neck. It was coarse and soft at the same time. He was warm, radiating a feverish heat. "You idiot," I whispered, resting my forehead against his muzzle. "You big, furry, dramatic idiot." The wolf let out a sigh that vibrated through my entire body. He leaned his weight against me, almost knocking me over. "Can we keep him?" Toby asked, standing up and dusting flour off his knees. "I mean, technically he's the landlord, so he keeps us, but still." I laughed. It was a wet, shaky sound. "Yeah, Toby, I think we're keeping him." The wolf licked the tears off my cheek with a rough, sandpaper tongue. I looked at the destruction around us. The secret was out. Julian was gone, but he would be back. We couldn't stay here. The quiet life in Seabrook was over. "Go pack your bag, Toby," I said, my voice hardening. "Grab Swipper, we're leaving." The wolf growled in agreement. "Where are we going?" Toby asked. I looked into the wolf's golden eyes. I saw the map in his mind. I saw the war room. I saw the fight ahead. "We're going to take back our castle," I said. Chapter 7. The Getaway Car. "Okay, listen up," I shouted over the wail of distant sirens. "We have 5 minutes before the cops show up to ask why my bakery looks like a wrestling ring." I stood in the middle of the ruined shop. The floor was a mosaic of shattered glass and squashed bagels. The massive black wolf, Damien, was standing by the door, his ears swiveling toward the sound of the approaching sirens. He looked agitated. He paced back and forth, his claws clicking on the floorboards. Click-clack. Click-clack. "Stop pacing," I ordered, pointing the broom at him. "You're making me nervous. Toby, grab the go bag. And get the ferret." "On it." Toby saluted. He scrambled upstairs to the apartment. I turned to the wolf. "And you, we need a car. My hatchback is parked out back, but it barely runs. Do you have a Batmobile hidden somewhere?" The wolf huffed. He tossed his head toward the alleyway. "Great. Lead the way, Cujo." I ran upstairs, grabbed my purse, which, thanks to Damien's severance package, had a very expensive credit card in it, and met Toby on the landing. He had his backpack and Swipper's travel carrier. "Swipper stole a spoon," Toby reported, breathless. "I let him keep it. For morale." "Fine, let's go." We ran down the fire escape into the rainy alley. There, parked behind a dumpster, was a black, nondescript cargo van. It looked like something a plumber would drive. It was dirty, dented, and completely unassuming. "Seriously?" I asked the wolf. "You're a Billionaire Alpha and you drive a creeper van." The wolf chuffed, a sound that was definitely defensive, and nudged the back doors open with his nose. "Get in," I told Toby. "Buckle up, and don't let the ferret out." Toby hopped in. I turned to Damien. "You too, get in the back." The wolf looked at the van. Then he looked at me. He looked at the van again. He was the size of a pony. The van was compact. "Don't give me that look," I snapped. "You're the one who decided to turn into a giant dog. Figure it out." Damien let out a low, grumbling whine, but he leaped into the back of a van. The suspension groaned under his weight. He had to crouch low, his massive head brushing the ceiling. He curled up next to Toby, looking ridiculous and cramped. I jumped into the driver's seat. "Keys?" I demanded, holding out my hand. Damien reached under the heavy rubber floor mat and tossed me a key fob. "Catch." I started the engine. It didn't sound like a plumber's van. It roared to life with the purr of a high-performance engine. Bulletproof glass, reinforced tires. Okay, maybe it was a little bit of a Batmobile. I threw it into reverse, peeling out of the alley just as a police cruiser turned the corner onto Main Street. "Hold on!" I yelled. I slammed on the gas. We shot out of Seabrook, leaving the rain, the bakery, and my peaceful, boring life in the rearview mirror. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding, but for the first time in 6 months, it wasn't from anxiety. It was from adrenaline. "Where are we going?" Toby asked from the back. He was petting the wolf's ears. "We're going to the city," I said, watching the speedometer climb. "We're going to get our house back." The wolf let out a soft woof. "And don't think you're off the hook," I called back to him, glaring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. "As soon as we stop, you and I are having a very long conversation, and you better have good answers or I'm buying a silver leash." Chapter 8. The Naked Truth. 2 hours later, we were parked in a rest stop off the highway. The rain had stopped, but the night was pitch black. "Toby," I said, keeping my eyes on the dashboard, "put your headphones on, watch a movie on your iPad, do not look in the back." "Why?" Toby asked innocently. "Because Mr. Damien is going to turn back into a person," I said, "and when he does, he's going to be in his birthday suit." "Gross," Toby said, immediately putting on his noise-canceling headphones and turning his back. I waited. From the back of the van, I heard the sickening sound of bones cracking and snapping back into place. It sounded like popping bubble wrap made of calcium. A low groan of pain followed, then the rustle of fabric. "I keep spare clothes in the compartment," a deep, raspy voice said. I waited another minute. "Are you decent?" "I am dressed," Damien replied. "Decency is debatable." I turned around in the driver's seat. Damien was sitting on the floor of the van, leaning against the wall. He was wearing a fresh pair of black sweatpants and a tight gray t-shirt. He looked exhausted. His hair was messy, his face was pale, and there was a dark bruise forming on his ribs where the spear had grazed him. But his eyes were clear. They were that warm, melting chocolate brown I remembered. "Hi," he whispered. "Don't you hi me," I said, climbing into the back to sit opposite him. I crossed my legs and glared. "You look terrible." "Silver slows the healing," he admitted, wincing as he shifted. "It burns." "Good," I said, though my hand twitched with the urge to check the wound. "You deserve a little burn. You lied to me, Damien, for 6 months. I protected you," he argued, his voice gaining a little strength. "Layla, the council, they aren't like Julian. Julian is greedy. The council is ancient. They follow laws written in blood. They would have killed you just to prove a point to me." "So you erased my memory?" I demanded. "You took away my choice?" "If you remembered," he said, leaning forward, his intensity returning, "you would have tried to contact me. You would have looked for me. And if you looked, they would have found you." He reached out. His hand hovered in the space between us. "I had to make you hate me," he said softly. "I had to make you forget you loved me. It was the only way to make you stay away." "Well, it didn't work," I pointed out. "I didn't hate you. I just thought you were a jerk with a bagel addiction." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I couldn't stay away either. I tried. I moved into the apartment next door just to hear you breathe through the wall. I bought those damn bagels just to see your face for 30 seconds a day." My anger began to deflate. It was hard to stay mad at a man who had lived in an empty room for half a year just to be my bodyguard. "You're an idiot," I sighed. "I am," he agreed. "And you're not doing this again," I stated firmly. "No more secrets. No more protecting me from the truth. If we're doing this, if we're mates, we do it together. 50-50. Damien looked at me. He looked at the fire in my eyes, the set of my jaw. He seemed to realize that the scared girl he had sent away on the train was gone. "Agreed," he vowed. 50-50. He finally closed the distance. He took my hand. His skin was fever hot. The spark was immediate, a rush of comfort and belonging that settled deep in my bones. "So," I said, squeezing his hand, "what's the plan? We can't just knock on the front door of the estate. Julian said he has backup." Damien's expression hardened. The Alpha returned. "We don't knock," he said. "The estate is a fortress, yes, but I built it, and I know the way in that isn't on the blueprints." "A secret tunnel?" I asked hopefully. "Please say secret tunnel." "Better," Damien smirked. "A sewer grate." "I take it back," I groaned. "I hate this plan already." Chapter 9. The Lion's Den. The city skyline loomed ahead of us, a jagged row of teeth against the night sky. We drove to the outskirts where the wealthy hid their mansions in the dense forest. The Vargr estate was located on a private mountain, surrounded by miles of protected wilderness. Damien parked the van 3 miles from the main gate, hiding it deep in an overgrown logging road. "We walk from here," he said. "Swipper stays," I told Toby. "It's too dangerous." "But he's a stealth expert," Toby argued. "He's a liability with a tail," Damien corrected gently. "Leave him with the food bag. He will be happy." We hiked through the woods. The ground was wet and muddy. My sneakers were ruined within 5 minutes. "Remind me why I didn't pack hiking boots," I muttered, slapping a mosquito on my neck. "Because you were busy hitting a mercenary with a broom," Damien whispered. He was walking ahead, moving silently through the underbrush. Even in human form, he moved like a predator. We reached the edge of the perimeter fence. It was impressive, 12 feet high, topped with razor wire, and humming with a lethal voltage of electricity. Beyond it, the estate glowed like a beacon. Lights were on in every window. "It looks busy," I noted, crouching behind a fern. "Julian is throwing a party," Damien growled. His eyes flashed gold in the darkness. "He is celebrating his victory. He thinks I am running." "He's in for a surprise," I said grimly. Damien led us along the fence line until we reached a rocky outcrop near a drainage ditch. A large, rusted iron grate was set into the earth, half covered by vines. "The storm drain," Damien said. "It leads directly to the sub-basement under the kitchen." "Classy," I said. Damien gripped the iron bars. He didn't need tools, he just flexed his shoulders. With a groan of protesting metal, he ripped the grate out of the concrete and set it aside. "After you," he gestured. "Ladies first into the slime," I muttered. "Chivalry is dead." We climbed down. It smelled like damp earth and old water, but thankfully not sewage. We walked for what felt like a mile in the cramped, echoing tunnel. Toby thought it was the coolest thing that had ever happened to him. I was mostly worried about rats. Finally, we reached a ladder. Damien climbed up first and pushed open a heavy manhole cover. He peeked out, sniffed the air, and then motioned for us to follow. We emerged into a cold, dark room lined with shelves. It smelled of cardboard and wine? "The wine cellar," Damien whispered, helping Toby up, "just below the kitchen." Above us, we could hear the thumping of bass, music, laughter, the sound of clinking glasses. "They're having a rave in my house," Damien snarled quietly. "Let's crash it," I said. We crept up the cellar stairs. Damien cracked the door open. The kitchen was busy, but it wasn't my kitchen staff. These were rough-looking men and women, drinking beer, eating food straight out of the fridge with their hands. They wore armbands with a silver insignia, a wolf skull. "Rogues," Damien hissed, "mercenaries hired by the council." "There are too many of them to fight," I whispered, counting at least 10 in the kitchen alone. "Even for you." "We don't need to fight them all," Damien said. "We just need to get to the security room in the West Wing. If I can override the system, I can lock them in and cut the power." "And then?" "And then," Damien smiled, his teeth looking very sharp, "I hunt them in the dark." Suddenly, the cellar door at the top of the stairs creaked open. We all froze. A man stepped onto the landing, holding a bottle of vintage Pinot Noir. He looked down at us. He looked at Damien. He opened his mouth to scream. Damien moved to silence him, but he was too far away. "Intruders!" the man yelled, shattering the bottle on the floor. Smash. The music upstairs didn't stop, but the kitchen went dead silent. 10 pairs of hostile eyes turned toward the cellar door. "Plan B," I said, grabbing a bottle of champagne from the rack next to me. "What is Plan B?" Toby asked, terrified. "Run!" Damien roared. "Run to the library!" He kicked the door open, slamming it into the nearest mercenary, and we burst into the chaos. Chapter 10. Champagne Supernova. "Run!" Damien roared. He didn't have to tell me twice, but running in a kitchen full of angry mercenaries is easier said than done. The rogue who had dropped the wine bottle lunged for me. He was big, hairy, and smelled like stale beer. He had a knife on his belt, but he reached for my arm with a greasy hand. "Come here, little girl," he sneered. "I am not," I grunted, swinging the magnum bottle of champagne like a baseball bat. "Little." Crack. The heavy glass bottle connected with his temple. It didn't break. Expensive glass is tough, but his head sure did. The rogue's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled to the floor like a sack of potatoes. "Nice swing," Damien grunted, grabbing a second rogue by the throat and tossing him into the industrial refrigerator. "I played softball in middle school," I yelled, grabbing Toby's hand. "Let's go!" The kitchen was a war zone. The other mercenaries were scrambling over the counters, drawing weapons. Someone fired a gun. Bang! And a copper pot above my head exploded. "Don't shoot the cookware!" I shrieked. "That's vintage French copper!" Damien shoved a massive prep table in front of the door, blocking 3 men. He was fighting in human form, but he moved with the speed of the wolf. He was a blur of fists and fury. He broke an arm, kicked a knee, and slammed a guy's face into a bowl of guacamole. "Hallway," Damien ordered, grabbing my other hand. We burst out of the kitchen into the servants' corridor. It was narrow and dimly lit. "Where are we going?" Toby panted. He wasn't scared. He looked like he was in a video game. "Are we going to the dungeon?" "We don't have a dungeon," Damien said, kicking a door open. "We have a library. It connects to the west wing." We sprinted down the hallway. My lungs burned. My sneakers squeaked on the polished wood. We reached the end of the corridor, which opened into the grand foyer. I skidded to a halt. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," I whispered. The grand foyer was packed. There were at least 50 people there. Julian really was throwing a party. Music blared from massive speakers. Rogues were drinking, laughing, and trashing the place. Someone was literally swinging from the crystal chandelier. They hadn't seen us yet. We were in the shadows of the servants' archway. "Too many," Damien hissed, pulling us back. "We can't cross the open floor." "So we're trapped?" I asked, gripping the champagne bottle tighter. It was starting to feel heavy. "Not trapped," Damien said, looking up. His golden eyes scanned the architecture. "We go up. The service dumbwaiter." I stared at him. "You want me to climb inside a food elevator? I am wearing designer jeans, Damien, and I am claustrophobic." "Would you rather climb the chute or dance with them?" Damien gestured to the room full of drunken killers. One of the rogues near the archway turned. He sniffed the air. He frowned. "Do you smell vanilla?" Damien didn't wait. He picked Toby up with one arm and grabbed my waist with the other. He dragged us into the laundry room next to the archway and locked the door. "Up," he commanded, opening the metal hatch in the wall. "Go." Chapter 11. The Rat in the Walls. The dumbwaiter shaft smelled like grease and dust. It was dark, tight, and completely undignified. "This is the worst heist ever," I grumbled, hauling myself up the service cables. I was using the metal rungs of the maintenance ladder built into the side of the shaft. "Keep moving," Damien whispered from below me, "and don't look down." "I'm not looking down," I snapped. "I'm looking at Toby's sneakers." Toby was above me, climbing like a spider monkey. "This is awesome. It's like Die Hard." We reached the second-floor landing. Damien pushed the hatch open, and we tumbled out onto the carpet of the upstairs hallway. It was quiet here. The music was a thumping bass beneath our feet. "Library is at the end of the hall," Damien whispered. He stood up, adjusting his t-shirt. He winced slightly, his hand brushing the bruised ribs where the silver had burned him. "You're hurt," I said softly, reaching for him. "I'm fine." He brushed me off. "Focus, Layla." Suddenly, the music downstairs stopped. A high-pitched feedback whine screeched through the house, followed by a voice on the intercom system. "Testing, testing." Julian's voice echoed from the speakers in the ceiling. It was smooth, calm, and terrifying. "Attention, guests. It seems we have party crashers." We froze. "The rat, the baker, and the pup have returned," Julian crooned. "They are in the house. Whoever brings me the baker alive gets $1 million. Whoever brings me the wolf's head gets the territory." A roar went up from downstairs. It sounded like a stadium erupting. "Run," Damien said. We sprinted. We didn't care about being quiet anymore. We tore down the hallway. Doors opened as we passed. Rogues who had been sleeping or looting the bedrooms stumbled out. Damien didn't stop. He clotheslined a man who stepped out of the guest room. He kicked another door shut right in a woman's face. "Library, now." We reached the massive double doors of the library. I threw them open. We dove inside. "Lock it!" I screamed. Damien slammed the heavy oak doors shut. He threw the deadbolt. Then, for good measure, he grabbed a massive bookshelf, solid mahogany filled with hundreds of books, and shoved it in front of the door with a grunt of exertion. Boom. The barricade was set. Seconds later, bodies slammed against the other side. Fists pounded on the wood. "Open up! We know you're in there!" "Let them knock," Damien panted, leaning his forehead against the books. "They can't get through that door without an axe." "Great," I said, leaning against a reading table, trying to catch my breath. "We're safe. In a room with no exit. We just trapped ourselves, genius." "Look around, Layla," Damien said, turning to face the room. "This is my library." I looked. It was the same room where Dr. Eris had treated Toby. The fireplace was cold. The walls were lined with books. "And?" I asked. "And?" Damien walked over to a specific section of the wall, near the philosophy section. "I hate dead ends." Chapter 12. Darkness Falls. Damien reached for a book. "Please tell me you pull a book and a secret door opens," I said. "That is the oldest cliché in the book." "No," Damien said. "Pulling a book is dramatic. I prefer biometrics." He pushed a panel of wood between the bookshelves. It slid aside to reveal a small glass scanner. He pressed his palm against it. A red beam of light scanned his hand. Beep! Identity confirmed, Alpha Prime. A section of the bookcase hissed and swung inward. It didn't lead to a dusty tunnel. It led to a room bathed in blue light. "The security hub," Damien said. "Get in." We hurried inside. The room was small but filled with screens. It looked like NASA control. Monitors covered every wall, showing live feeds of the entire estate. We saw the kitchen, ruined. We saw the foyer, full of rogues searching. We saw the hallway outside the library, men hacking at the door with fire axes. "Okay," Damien said, sitting in the leather chair. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Time to end the party." "What are you doing?" Toby asked, watching the screens. "I built this house to be a fortress," Damien said, his eyes reflecting the blue code scrolling on the screens. "But also a trap. Layla, watch monitor 4. I looked. The screen showed the main ballroom, where most of the rogues were gathering in a confused herd. "System override," Damien commanded. "Initiate protocol blackout." He hit enter. On the screens, the lights in the house died. All of them. The ballroom went pitch black. The hallway went black. The rogues started shouting. We could see them on the screens because the cameras switched to night vision. They were stumbling, confused. "Protocol, lockdown," Damien said. Clang, clang, clang. On the screens, heavy steel shutters slammed down over every window and door in the house. The library doors were sealed. The ballroom exits were sealed. The rogues were trapped in the dark. "Now," Damien whispered. He stood up. He wasn't the tired, injured man anymore. He was the monster. He stripped off his t-shirt. "What are you doing?" I asked. "They are locked in the dark," Damien said, his eyes starting to glow gold in the dim light of the security room. "They can't see, but I can." He walked toward the door that led back out into the library. "Stay here," he ordered. "Watch the screens. Don't open this door until I say the code word." "What's the code word?" I asked, grabbing his arm. I was terrified. There were 50 of them and one of him. He looked down at me. He leaned in and kissed me, hard, fast, and possessive. "Vanilla," he growled against my lips. Then he stepped out into the darkness. I watched on the monitor. In the hallway outside the library, the rogues were using flashlights trying to chop through the door. Suddenly, a shadow moved behind them. It was huge. It was fast. 2 golden eyes appeared in the blackness. The rogues turned. They screamed. Then the camera feed went static. Chapter 13. Cleanup on Aisle 4. Watching a horror movie is scary. Watching a horror movie where the monster is your boyfriend is complicated. I sat in the leather chair of the security hub, my knees pulled up to my chest. The wall of monitors bathed the small room in a ghostly blue glow. Next to me, Toby was eating a bag of fruit snacks he had found in his backpack, staring at the screens with wide, fascinated eyes. "He's like a ninja," Toby whispered, chewing a gummy bear. "He's a wolf, Toby," I corrected, though my stomach was doing flips. A very angry, very protective wolf. On Monitor 6, the hallway outside the guest bedrooms was pitch black, but thanks to the night vision cameras, we could see everything in grainy green and black. 3 rogues were creeping down the hall. They held flashlights that cut weak beams through the darkness. They were terrified. I could see the sweat on their foreheads. They jumped at every creak of the floorboards. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the ceiling. It wasn't a wolf, it was a man, but he moved like smoke. Damien dropped behind the last rogue. He didn't make a sound. He wrapped his arm around the man's neck. There was a sharp jerk, and the man slumped to the floor. The other 2 spun around, aiming their flashlights, but Damien was already gone, vanished into a side room. "Where is he?" one of the rogues screamed, firing his gun blindly into the dark. Bang, bang. "He's everywhere," the other yelled. I looked at the control panel in front of me. There was a button labeled PA System, All Zones. I couldn't help myself. The adrenaline was making me reckless. I pressed the button and leaned into the microphone. "Attention, intruders," I said, making my voice as smooth and professional as a flight attendant. "We are experiencing some technical difficulties with your survival. Please remain calm while the Alpha hunts you down." On the screen, the 2 rogues froze. They looked up at the ceiling speakers, their eyes wild. "She's watching us," one yelled. "The girl is watching us." Damien lunged from the darkness again. He took them both out in 3 seconds flat. It was brutal, efficient, and over before they hit the ground. I released the button. "Clean up on Aisle 4. "You're enjoying this," Toby noted. "I am absolutely not," I lied. My heart was racing. It was terrifying, yes, but seeing him dismantle the people who wanted to kill my brother, it was also weirdly satisfying. But then my eyes flicked to Monitor 1, the grand ballroom. It was empty of rogues. "Where did they go?" I whispered. There had been at least 20 men in there a minute ago. Now the room was deserted. The furniture was overturned, glass was broken, but Julian and his elite guard were missing. A chill ran down my spine. Julian wasn't a grunt. He was smart. He wouldn't just stand in the dark waiting to be picked off. "Toby, scan the feeds," I ordered, my fingers flying over the keyboard to switch camera angles. "Find the white suit." We searched the kitchen. Empty. We searched the basement. Empty. "There!" Toby pointed to a small screen in the corner. "Monitor 9. I squinted. Monitor 9 showed the servants' staircase. It was a narrow, hidden stairwell that bypassed the main floors. Julian was there. He was climbing up. He was surrounded by 6 heavily armed men wearing night vision goggles. They weren't stumbling in the dark. They could see. And they were heading straight for the 2nd floor. Straight for the library. "He knows," I breathed. He figured out where the lockdown command came from. Chapter 14. The Silver Bullet. I grabbed the walkie-talkie Damien had left on the desk. "Damien!" I hissed into it. "Code red. Julian is coming up the back stairs. He has night vision." Static crackled. Then Damien's voice came through. It was breathless and strained. "I see them. Keep the door locked, Layla. Do not open it." "Where are you?" I asked, watching the screens frantically. "I'm cutting them off," he growled. I watched Monitor 9. Julian and his team reached the second-floor landing. They were moving tactically, guns raised. They turned the corner toward the library. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows of the linen closet to intercept them. It was Damien. He was shirtless, his skin slick with sweat and blood. The bruise on his ribs from the silver spear was a dark, ugly purple now, spreading like an infection. He looked exhausted. "Vargr," Julian shouted, raising a heavy silver pistol. "Fire!" The 6 mercenaries opened fire. Damien didn't run. He charged. He moved so fast the camera blurred. He tackled the first 2 men, slamming them into the wall. The impact shook the camera mounted on the ceiling. It was a brawl. A messy, desperate brawl. Damien was powerful, but he was hurt, and these men were prepared. They used electric batons and silver knives. I watched in horror as a baton struck Damien's shoulder. He roared, his body convulsing from the shock, but he grabbed the baton and snapped it in half. He threw the man down the stairs. "Behind you!" I screamed at the screen, forgetting he couldn't hear me through the monitor. One of the mercenaries stabbed a knife into Damien's thigh. Damien howled. It wasn't a human sound. He spun around and backhanded the man so hard he flew through a closed door. But Julian was hanging back. He wasn't fighting. He was watching. He was smiling. He aimed his silver pistol at Damien's exposed back. "Damien, turn around!" I screamed into the walkie-talkie. Bang! The shot flared white on the night vision screen. Damien jerked forward. He stumbled. He fell to one knee. My heart stopped. "He shot him," Toby whispered, his hands covering his mouth. "He shot Shadowfang." Damien tried to stand. He snarled, swiping at the men circling him, but his movements were slower. The silver bullet was inside him. It was poisoning his blood. Julian stepped forward. He kicked Damien in the chest, knocking him onto his back. "Capture him," Julian ordered his men, "and break down that library door. I want the girl to watch him die." The mercenaries moved past Damien's prone body. They started marching down the hall toward the library, toward us. I looked at the heavy bookcase blocking the door. It wouldn't hold them for long. Not if they had explosives. Not if they had an axe. I looked at the walkie-talkie. It was silent. "We have to help him," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. "But he said stay put," Toby argued, terrified. "He's dying, Toby," I said, standing up. I looked around the small security room. There were no weapons here, just computers and wires. Wait, wires. I looked at the back of the massive server tower humming in the corner. It was plugged into a high-voltage outlet. "Toby," I said, grabbing the fire extinguisher from the wall. "Do you remember when you asked if this was like Die Hard?" "Yeah?" "Well," I said, weighing the heavy red canister in my hands, "yippee-ki-yay!" Chapter 15. Breaking the Rules. The first axe blow hit the library door with a deafening thud. We were out of the security hub now, standing in the main library. It was pitch black, save for the blue light spilling from the open secret panel. Thud. Wood splintered. The barricade of books I had thought was so secure shook. "They're coming through," Toby whispered. He was holding a stapler. It was cute and heartbreaking. "Get behind the desk," I ordered him. "Don't come out no matter what." I stood in the center of the room. I held the fire extinguisher. I took a deep breath. I was terrified. My hands were sweating, but I wasn't going to hide in a hole while Damien bled out in the hallway. Crack. The library doors burst open. The heavy bookcase was shoved aside by 3 men. Beams of tactical light cut through the darkness, blinding me. "There she is!" a voice shouted. 3 mercenaries rushed in. They wore goggles. They had guns. "Don't move!" one yelled. I didn't move. I waited. They stepped closer. They ignored the dark corners of the room. They were focused on the prize. Me. "Julian wants her alive," the lead mercenary grinned, holstering his gun and reaching for me. "Come here, sweetheart." He stepped onto the rug in front of me. "Now!" I screamed. I wasn't talking to Damien. I was talking to the laws of physics. I pulled the pin on the fire extinguisher and sprayed. A massive cloud of white chemical fog exploded into the room. The thick powder reflected the infrared beams of their night vision goggles, creating a wall of blinding white static. "My goggles!" one yelled, ripping them off. "It's a whiteout! I can't see!" "Get her!" I swung the heavy metal canister. Clang! I hit the lead guy in the stomach. He doubled over. I ran. Not away from them, but past them. I sprinted for the open door. "She's getting away!" I burst into the hallway. It was chaos. Damien was still on the floor, surrounded by 3 other guards. He was bleeding from his shoulder and his leg. He looked barely conscious. But when he saw me run out of the library, his head snapped up. "Layla!" he roared. The sight of me, or maybe the sheer stupidity of me running into a gunfight, triggered something in him. He surged up. He didn't stand. He launched himself from the floor like a coiled spring. He tackled the guard standing over him, sinking his teeth into the man's tactical vest. "Julian!" I screamed, scanning the hallway. He was standing near the stairs, reloading his pistol. He looked up, surprised to see me charging at him with nothing but rage and a fire extinguisher. "You foolish girl," he laughed, raising the gun. I didn't stop. I threw the extinguisher at him. It was a heavy industrial canister. It spiraled through the air. Julian ducked. The canister smashed into the wall behind him, missing his head by inches. "Missed," he sneered, aiming the gun at my chest. "I wasn't aiming for you," I panted. The canister smashed into the electrical junction box on the wall, the one his stray bullets had already sparked open. Metal crumpled into live wires. The panel exploded with a deafening pop. The sudden, blinding flare overloaded Julian's night vision goggles. He screamed in frustration, ripping the useless headset off his face as the emergency lights flickered and died. Total, absolute darkness. He fired blindly into the black. Bang, bang. I dropped to the floor, crawling toward where I had seen Damien. "Damien?" I whispered into the blackness. "Say the word. Say the code word." Silence. Then, a low, wet growl vibrated right next to my ear. A hot hand grabbed my ankle. "Vanilla," he rasped. I let out a sob of relief. "I'm here. I've got you." "Get back," he wheezed. "I can't hold on much longer." "Hold on to what?" "The shift," he groaned. "The silver. It's forcing the change. I can't control it." I felt his body spasm under my hands. His skin was rippling, bones cracking. He was shifting into the wolf. But he was injured. Shifting with a silver wound could kill him. "Let it happen," I whispered, holding his face in the dark. "Be the wolf. The wolf heals faster." "If I shift," he gasped, "I might not know you. The pain makes me feral. I'm not scared of you," I promised. "Do it. Kill them all." Damien let out a roar that shook the floorboards. He shifted, and this time, in the pitch black, the only thing visible were 2 glowing golden eyes rising from the floor like demons. Chapter 16. The Big Bad Wolf. The hallway was silent. It was a heavy, suffocating silence that pressed against my eardrums. The only light came from the faint glow of the moon filtering through the cracks in the steel shutters. And the eyes. 2 golden orbs burned in the darkness above me. They weren't looking at me with love. They weren't looking at me with recognition. They were looking at me like I was calories. "Damien?" I whispered. The wolf let out a roar that shattered the silence. He moved. He didn't attack me. He leaped over me. A mercenary with night vision goggles had tried to stand up down the hall. The wolf hit him with the force of a freight train. There was a scream, a wet crunch, and then silence again. "Shoot it! Shoot the beast!" Julian's voice cracked from the darkness near the stairs. Muzzle flashes lit up the hallway like a strobe light. Bang, bang, bang. The flashes revealed glimpses of a nightmare. The wolf was a blur of black fur and teeth. He was tearing through the elite squad like they were made of tissue paper. He didn't stop for bullets. He didn't stop for silver knives. He was pure, unadulterated rage. I pressed myself against the wall, covering my head. It sounded like a blender full of rocks. Then it stopped. No more gunshots, no more screams, just the sound of heavy, wet panting. The wolf turned. I saw the gold eyes fixate on me again. He stalked toward me. His muzzle was dripping with blood that wasn't his. He growled, a low, vibrating rumble that shook the floorboards beneath my legs. He was feral. He didn't know who I was. To him, I was just another heartbeat in the dark. He lowered his head, snapping his jaws inches from my face. Hot breath washed over me. "Damien," I said, keeping my voice steady even though I was terrified. "Sit." The wolf froze. He tilted his head. "I said sit," I commanded, channeling every ounce of authority I had used on Toby when he refused to eat his broccoli. "You are a bad dog. You do not eat the baker." The wolf snarled, inching closer. His teeth grazed my shoulder. He was testing me. He was deciding whether to submit or to bite. I didn't flinch. I reached out. My hand trembled, but I pressed my palm flat against the center of his chest, right over his thundering heart. "Vanilla," I whispered. "Remember? You like vanilla." The scent hit him. I saw his nostrils flare. He inhaled deeply, taking in the smell of flour, sugar, and me. The gold in his eyes flickered. For a second, a shade of warm, human brown bled through. He whined. The terrifying monster made a sound like a kicked puppy. He slumped forward, resting his heavy, bloody head on my lap. He was burning up. His body shook with tremors. "I've got you," I soothed, burying my fingers in his fur. "I'm here." "Layla?" a small voice whispered from the library door. "Stay back, Toby," I warned. "He's still dangerous." "Is he dead?" Toby asked, peeking out with his flashlight. The beam cut through the dark hallway. It revealed the carnage. The mercenaries were gone, incapacitated or fled, but the light also revealed Julian. He wasn't dead. He was gone. The staircase door was swinging shut. The coward had used his men as bait to escape. "He ran away," I spat. "Again." The wolf let out a pained yelp. He tried to stand, but his back legs gave out. He collapsed, panting heavily. I looked at his flank. The silver bullet wound was black and oozing. It looked like the veins around it were turning gray. "He's not dead," I told Toby, my heart breaking. "But he will be if we don't get that bullet out." Chapter 17. Surgery by Flashlight. "Toby, I need the tweezers from the first aid kit," I ordered, "and check that globe on the desk. Rich people always hide booze in globes." "On it!" Toby saluted. He opened the antique globe. Jackpot. It smells like cleaning supplies. "Bring it," I said. We were in the library. I had dragged Damien, still in wolf form, onto the rug. He was too heavy to move further. He was unconscious now, his breathing shallow and ragged. Toby ran over with the kit and a crystal decanter of clear liquid. "Hold the flashlight steady," I told him. "Don't look at the blood, look at the wall." "I'm looking at the blood," Toby said, fascinated. "It's really dark." I poured the vodka over the wound. The wolf twitched in his sleep, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Sorry, I whispered. "This is going to hurt." I didn't have surgical tools. I had a pair of tweezers and a steak knife I had grabbed from a room service tray in the hallway. I had to dig. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. My hands were slick with his blood. The smell of copper and singed fur filled the air. I could feel the silver bullet lodged against his rib. It radiated a strange coldness, like a piece of ice that burned. "Come on," I gritted my teeth. "Come out, you little piece of—" I clamped the tweezers around the metal slug. The wolf woke up. He didn't fully wake, but the pain triggered a reflex. He snapped his jaws. Snap. His teeth clamped down on my forearm. "Layla!" Toby screamed. I didn't pull away. If I pulled, he would tear the skin. I froze, tears springing to my eyes from the pain. "It's okay," I gasped. "He doesn't mean it. Damien, let go, it's me." The wolf's eyes opened. They were hazy, swimming with agony. He realized what he was biting. He released me instantly, whining pitifully. He licked the wound on my arm, apologizing as he tasted my blood. "I'm fine," I lied, though blood was trickling down my wrist. "Just stay still." I went back in. One final tug. Clink! The bullet hit the silver tray I had placed on the floor. Immediately, the tension left Damien's body. The black veins around the wound stopped spreading. The wound began to knit together before my eyes, the supernatural healing kicking in now that the poison was gone. "You did it!" Toby cheered. "We did it." I slumped back, wiping my bloody hands on my jeans. I was exhausted. I wanted to sleep for a week. But we weren't done. A slow, rhythmic clapping echoed from the open doorway. We both spun around. Julian stood there. He looked disheveled. His white suit was stained with soot and blood. He had lost his gun, but he was holding something else, a remote detonator. "Bravo," Julian said, his eyes wild, truly touching. "The baker saves the beast." Damien tried to rise, but he was still too weak. He could only lift his head and snarl. "Don't bother, Vargr," Julian sneered. "You're done. The council is on their way. They'll be here in 10 minutes to see the mess you made." "Then why are you still here?" I asked, standing up and putting myself between Julian and the wolf. "Why didn't you run?" "Because I don't leave loose ends," Julian smiled. He held up the detonator. "I rigged the basement gas mains with C4 the day I moved in. A scorched earth policy. If I can't have the territory, no one can." He placed his thumb on the button. "Say goodbye, sweetheart." Chapter 18. The Stapler Gun. Time seemed to slow down. I looked at the detonator. I looked at Julian's finger. I looked at Toby. Toby wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Julian, and he was holding something behind his back. "Hey!" Toby shouted. Julian blinked, looking down at the 7-year-old. "What?" "Shadow Fang isn't the only one with weapons," Toby announced. He whipped his hand out. He was holding the heavy-duty office stapler from the library desk. He didn't throw it. He opened it and, using both hands, fired it. Click! Nothing happened. It was a stapler. It wasn't a gun. Julian laughed. "A stapler? Really? That is your last stand?" "No," Toby grinned. "That was a distraction." While Julian was looking at Toby, he didn't look at the floor. He didn't see the long, furry shape slithering out from under the library sofa. Swipper. "I thought we left him in the van," I hissed. "I couldn't leave a man behind," Toby whispered back. "I put him in my backpack." The ferret shook himself off. He looked matted, annoyed, and ready for violence, and he loved shiny things. Julian's detonator had a shiny red light on it. Swipper lunged. He scrambled up Julian's pant leg. "What the?" Julian shrieked, dancing around as the ferret climbed him like a tree. Swipper reached the hand holding the detonator. He bit Julian's thumb. Hard. "Gah!" Julian screamed. He dropped the detonator. It clattered across the floor, sliding toward me. I didn't hesitate. I kicked it. I kicked it hard, sending it sliding under the heavy mahogany bookshelf where no one could reach it. "You little vermin!" Julian roared. He grabbed Swipper by the scruff of the neck and threw him against the wall. Swipper hit the padded tapestry and slid down, dazed but alive. That was the last straw. I heard a sound behind me, a sound like bones cracking. I turned. Damien wasn't a wolf anymore. He had shifted back. He was naked, bloody, and standing on 2 legs. He didn't look weak. He looked like death incarnate. "You hurt the boy," Damien said, his voice a human growl. "You shot me. You threatened my mate." He took a step toward Julian. "But throwing the ferret?" Damien's eyes blazed gold. "That is unforgivable." Julian backed up. "Stay back. I am a council member. You can't touch me." "You are a trespasser," Damien corrected. He didn't shift fully. He just let his claws extend. He lunged. He didn't kill him. That would be too easy. Damien grabbed Julian by the lapels of his ruined white suit and slammed him into the stone fireplace. Crack. "Layla," Damien said calmly, holding the struggling villain with one hand. "Call Blackwood. Tell him to bring the cleanup crew, and tell him to bring a cage." Julian whimpered. "The council is coming! They will see this!" "Let them come," Damien said, looking at me. He was covered in blood, naked and terrifying, and he was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. "We have nothing to hide anymore." Just then, a screeching groan of tearing metal echoed from the balcony. The steel security shutters were ripped open from the outside as if they were aluminum foil. Seconds later, the massive glass doors shattered inward. Wind and rain swept into the room, extinguishing the last few embers in the fireplace. 6 figures in dark cloaks stepped through the broken debris from the storm outside. The council had arrived. Chapter 19. Judgment Day. The 6 figures in the doorway didn't walk. They glided. Their dark cloaks brushed against the debris on the floor as they entered the ruined library. The lead figure pulled back his hood. It was Elder Thorn. His face was carved from granite, and his milky violet eyes scanned the room with terrifying coldness. His gaze swept over the broken furniture and paused on the silver bullet resting on the tray. He studied the naked, blood-covered Alpha holding a man by the throat. Finally, his eyes landed on me. "Explain," Thorn said. His voice was quiet, but it carried more weight than a shout. "He's insane!" Julian choked out, struggling against Damien's grip. "Look at him! He's feral! He attacked me! He tried to kill a council member!" Damien didn't speak. He just tightened his grip on Julian's windpipe, his golden eyes burning with silent fury. "He tried to blow up the house," I said. My voice was steady. I stepped forward, putting myself between the council and Damien. I was exhausted. I was covered in soot, flour, and blood. My arm throbbed where Damien had bitten me, but I wasn't scared. I was annoyed. "Julian Vane," I pointed a shaking finger at the man, "shot the Alpha with a silver bullet. He hired mercenaries to attack my family, and then, when he lost, he tried to detonate a gas main to kill us all." I kicked the heavy bookshelf behind me. "The detonator is under there. Go look if you don't believe me." Thorn looked at Julian. "Is this true?" "She's lying," Julian wheezed. "She's a human pet. Her word means nothing. Look at her, she's unmarked. She is nothing." Thorn turned his gaze to me. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. He smelled like old parchment and ozone. "The human speaks boldly," Thorn murmured. "But Julian is right. You are not Pack. You have no standing here." He reached out to grab my chin. Damien growled. It was a low, vibrating sound that shook the windows. "Don't touch her," Damien rasped. "Or what?" Thorn challenged, looking at Damien. "You are injured. You are compromised. You have mated with a weakling." "She is not weak," Damien said. I looked at Thorn. I remembered the fear I felt the first time I met him. I remembered how small I felt. Not anymore. I rolled up the sleeve of my flannel shirt. The bite mark on my forearm was angry and red. It was deep. It was undeniably the mark of a wolf's teeth. "I'm not unmarked," I said, holding my arm up for the council to see. "He claimed me, in blood, in battle." The room went silent. In werewolf law, a bite is a claim. It doesn't matter if it was accidental during surgery. It doesn't matter if he was delirious. A bite is a binding contract. Thorn's eyes widened slightly. He looked at the bite, then at Damien. "You marked her?" Thorn asked. "I did." Damien lied smoothly. He didn't hesitate. He owned it. "She is my mate. She is my Luna. And she saved the pack while Julian tried to destroy it." Thorn looked back at Julian. His expression shifted from curiosity to disgust. "You used silver," Thorn said to Julian. "You brought bombs into a sacred territory, and you were defeated by a human woman and a..." He squinted at Swipper, who was currently licking his paw on the rug. A rat? It's a ferret, Toby piped up from behind the desk. And he's a hero. Thorne sighed. He looked tired. The council does not tolerate weakness, Julian, Thorne said, and we certainly do not tolerate failure. He gestured to the other cloaked figures. Two of them stepped forward. They didn't grab Damien. They grabbed Julian. No! Julian screamed as they dragged him away from the fireplace. I have money. I have influence. You can't do this. Your money is confiscated, Thorne said coldly. Your territory is forfeit. It now belongs to Alpha Vargr. Julian was dragged out into the rain, screaming until the heavy doors slammed shut, cutting off the sound. Thorne turned back to us. He looked at Damien, then at me. He bowed his head slightly. A fraction of an inch. But it was enough. Clean this mess up, Alpha, Thorne said, and put some clothes on. With a swirl of his cloak, he turned and left. As soon as they were gone, Damien's legs gave out. He sat heavily on the hearth, groaning. I ran to him. I grabbed a throw blanket from the sofa and wrapped it around his shoulders. You okay? I asked, checking his bandages. Damien looked at me. He looked at the bite on my arm. He gently touched the red marks with his thumb. I hurt you, he whispered, his eyes full of regret. You marked me, I corrected, smiling tiredly. I think that makes us official, partner. Damien let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. He pulled me into his lap, burying his face in my hair. Official, he agreed. Now, can we please get something to eat? I'm starving. Chapter 20. The Golden Crust. Finale. 2 weeks later. The kitchen of the Vargr estate smelled like cinnamon, yeast, and victory. I pulled a tray of croissants out of the industrial oven. They were perfect. Golden, flaky, and glistening with butter. Order up, I shouted. Toby ran into the kitchen. He wasn't wearing pajamas anymore. He was wearing a custom-made t-shirt that said Shadow Fang Jr. in neon green letters. Are they ready? Toby asked, bouncing on his heels. Careful, they're hot, I warned, putting the tray on the cooling rack. Toby grabbed one anyway, tossing it between his hands. Ow, ow, hot! Awesome! He ran out the back door toward the garden. Through the window, I could see a group of rugged-looking men, Damien's new security team, playing soccer with him. They treated him like a mascot. He was thriving. I wiped my hands on my apron. I looked around the kitchen. It was mine now. Really mine. I wasn't just the employee anymore. I was the lady of the house, although the staff still called me chef because I refused to let anyone else cook. You missed a spot. I turned around. Damien was leaning against the doorframe. He looked healthy. The dark circles were gone. The bruises had faded. He was wearing jeans and a black t-shirt that fit him perfectly, and he was holding a small black velvet box. My heart did that stupid fluttery thing. I did not miss a spot, I argued, grabbing a rag. My kitchen is spotless. Not the counter, Damien said, walking toward me. Your neck. He stopped in front of me. He reached out and brushed a stray curl of hair behind my ear. His touch was warm, familiar, and electrifying. I found it, he said softly. In the apartment. In Seabrook. He opened the box. Inside lay the Luna's crescent. He had fixed it. The silver chain was repaired, stronger than before. The sapphire pendant glowed in the sunlight streaming through the windows. You went back for it? I asked, touching the stone. I would go to the ends of the earth for you, Layla, he said. His voice was deep, serious, and full of that intense alpha possessiveness I had come to love. But yes, I went back to the scary apartment. He took the necklace out. He moved behind me. I lifted my hair. This isn't a shield anymore, Damien whispered against my ear as he fastened the clasp. It's not to protect you from them. It's to show them that you are the queen. The heavy silver settled against my collarbone. It felt right. It felt like coming home. I turned around in his arms. I looked up into his amber eyes. Does this mean I get a raise? I teased. Because running a bakery and an alpha estate is a lot of work. Damien laughed. It was a true, deep laugh that rumbled in his chest. You own the estate, Layla, he said, wrapping his arms around my waist and pulling me flush against him. You own the company. You own the wolf. He leaned down. And, he added, his voice dropping to a growl, you own me. He kissed me. It tasted like coffee and promise. It was passionate, consuming, and perfect. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the pantry. Crash. Clatter. We broke apart. Swipper ran out of the pantry. He was dragging a bag of dried cranberries that was bigger than his body. He scurried across the floor, looking guilty but determined. Swipper! I yelled. Drop it! The ferret ignored me. He ran under the cabinets. Damien sighed, resting his forehead against mine. We really need to get a lock for the pantry. We need a lot of things, I smiled, wrapping my arms around his neck. But we have time. Yeah. Damien kissed my nose. We have forever. Outside, the sun was shining. My brother was laughing. My ferret was stealing chocolate. And the monster in the kitchen wasn't a monster at all. He was just my grumpy, protective, bagel-loving alpha. And I was his. Epilogue. The bun in the oven, 2 years later. Put the flour down, Layla. I can lift a bag of flour, Damien. I am pregnant, not invalid. Put it down. I sighed, dropping the 5-pound bag of King Arthur flour onto the marble counter. It landed with a soft poof, sending a white cloud into the air. I turned to glare at my husband. Damien was standing in the doorway of the kitchen. He looked even better than he had 2 years ago. Marriage suited him. The sharp edges of his exhaustion were gone, replaced by a calm, confident strength. But right now, he was in full helicopter alpha mode. He walked over to me, his golden brown eyes scanning me for injuries. He placed his large, warm hands on my waist, or rather, where my waist used to be. Currently, I looked like I had swallowed a basketball. A very active, very strong basketball. Dr. Eris said you need to rest, Damien murmured, rubbing his thumbs over the bump stretching my floral sundress. Your ankles are swollen. My ankles are fine, I lied. They were definitely swollen. And I have to bake. It's stress relief. If I don't need dough, I might need your face. Damien chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated against my belly. The baby, our pup, kicked hard in response. Oof, I gasped, pressing a hand to my side. Your son is practicing karate again. Damien's face softened into that look of pure, terrifying love that still made my knees weak. He knelt down on the kitchen floor, ignoring his expensive suit trousers. He pressed his ear against my stomach. Be gentle, little wolf, he whispered to the bump. Do not hurt your mother. She is the queen. If you kick her again, you are grounded until you are 18. The baby settled instantly. Unbelievable. I shook my head. He listens to you already. It's the alpha voice. It's cheating. It is parenting, Damien smirked, standing up and kissing my nose. And he knows who the boss is. Yeah, I laughed. Me. Just then, the back door flew open. We have a situation! Toby burst into the kitchen. He was 9 now, tall for his age, with messy hair and a pair of neon running shoes. He held a walkie-talkie in one hand. What is it, Shadowfang? Damien asked seriously. The asset has been compromised, Toby reported breathlessly. Swipper stole the binky. The binky? I asked. We haven't even opened the baby shower gifts yet. He broke into the nursery. Toby pointed to the hallway. Sure enough, Swipper the ferret waddled into the kitchen. He looked fat, happy, and extremely pleased with himself. In his mouth, he clamped the stolen bright blue binky. He scurried under the kitchen island to add it to his stash. That ferret is a menace, Damien sighed, running a hand through his hair. I should have turned him into a pair of gloves years ago. You love him, I teased. I saw you feeding him prosciutto yesterday. Lies. Damien grunted, though his ears turned pink. He stole it. Damien lifted me effortlessly onto the counter. I settled between his legs, enjoying the relief on my feet. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, bathing the kitchen in gold. "Are you happy?" Damien asked suddenly. He looked intense again, searching my eyes. "What kind of question is that?" I smiled, running my fingers through his dark hair. "A serious one," he said. 2 years ago, we were running for our lives. You were sleeping in a van. Now—" He looked around the warm, messy kitchen. "I just want to make sure this is enough for you." I looked at him. I looked at the sapphire crescent moon necklace resting against my throat, the mark of his claim. I looked at my little brother, who was currently trying to negotiate a trade with a ferret for a pacifier. I felt the strong, steady kick of our son inside me. "Damien," I whispered, cupping his face. "I have a billionaire wolf who rubs my feet. I have a brother who is healthy and happy. And I have a baby on the way who is going to be just as stubborn as his father." I leaned in and kissed him. "This isn't just enough," I said against his lips. "It's everything." Damien smiled. He rested his forehead against mine, his hand covering our unborn child. "Mine," he growled softly. "Yours," I answered. "Always." From under the island, a pacifier rolled out across the floor. "I got it!" Toby cheered. Life was chaotic. It was loud. It was messy. And it was delicious. The end.